Okay, Mr. Abdul Rauf, we're continuing with our fourth part. Our Skype is closing. Now we're using other devices. We hope not to close. So you were telling to us about the cases of discrimination by settlers of against the Arnauts in Jerusalem. You mentioned that one Arnaut was arrested. Why was he arrested by Israeli authorities?
Because of the there were recent problems in East Jerusalem since the beginning of Ramadan, related to the issues of Al-Aqsa Mosque, to Sheikh Jarrah, to Damascus Gate in the old city. So he was arrested by the claims that he was part of this protests, by Palestinians in East Jerusalem against these acts by the Israelis, in Jerusalem. So he was taken to prison interrogation, and then he was kept in. It was decided that he'll stay in prison for 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
For taking part in a protest.
Yes.
Now we have an Albanian embassy in Tel Aviv, and recently we had. Is it good?
Yes.
And recently we have even the embassy of Kosovo in Jerusalem. Do they ever contact with you? Do they ever care about the Albanians of Israel?
We are not in Israel, just to
in occupied Jerusalem.
Yeah, we are in the occupied East Jerusalem, and they were never in connection with us, to try, it is known that there is Arnauts, in East Jerusalem, but they never tried to connect and ask, for instance, about us, about the origins, about, no, but, for instance, just to make a comparison, there is the Turkish consulate in East Jerusalem, and there is the Turkish embassy in Tel Aviv. And they try, from my work as a journalist, I know that they try all the time to search for those who are from Turkish origin, who live in East Jerusalem, in Palestine in general. And they get into connection with them to know them, to know their situation, to try to connect them with their families in Turkey. There were once like three years ago, there were a big meeting that took place in Ankara. It was organized by TICA and the Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the President, to speak about Jerusalem, and to speak about, the people who are from Turkish origin who live in Jerusalem. But unfortunately, there is no such thing, from there is no consulate for Albania in Jerusalem, but there is the embassy in Tel Aviv. But they never had a connection with us. It's easy because we live in East Jerusalem. It's easy for them to connect with us. It's easy for them, to call us and say, "Come, we want to hear more about your family, about things." But they were never in connection with us. To try to know. Now nobody from us is saying that the, we need something, but at least, to make the connection to see, to see maybe they can help, with the issue of the connection with the families, that if there is families, in Albania, I know that from all the family that lives in East Jerusalem, I'm the only one who visited Albania. All the others, they didn't have the opportunity to visit. They wish to visit and to see Albania, but they don't have the possibility. You need, either the Albanian visa, which you only can get from Egypt, or you need the Schengen. And mostly, you get in East Jerusalem, you get.
Sorry, 1 second, Mr. Abdul Rauf. First of all, can you stay a bit on the right of the? Yeah, that's it. Number two is no. You have to go further on your right. Yeah, that's it. And to look towards your phone. Now, you are saying that you need to go to Egypt for getting visa. Can you get the visa from Tel Aviv?
Yes. No, I can't get the visa from Tel Aviv because there is agreement of free visa between Israel and Albania. Now, the Israelis who have the Israeli passport, they don't need a visa. They just travel to Albania and that's it. But for me, in order to travel to Albania, I need to get a visa, and because I have the Jordanian passport, I need to go to Egypt to get the visa.
But why to Egypt and not to Tel Aviv, to the Albanian embassy in Tel Aviv?
Because it is the Jordanian passport.
So the Tel Aviv embassy does not cover you?
No.
All right. Now, sir.
No, if you go to the website of the Foreign Ministry of Albania, and you say I need a visa. So you put they ask you a question. For instance, what passport you have? You say Jordanian passport. It says Egypt.
Right. Recently, the government of Kosovo opened its embassy in Jerusalem. I have written one article in English about this. And I show how the government of Benjamin Netanyahu blackmailed the Kosovars through the evangelical administration of Donald Trump. In particular, it was the role of Richard Grenell, who blackmailed the government of Albin Kurti to sign a normalization agreement with Serbia. And among others, they wanted the Kosovo to send embassy in Jerusalem. The government of Albin Kurti resisted, didn't accept this in 2020, in April. And as a result, the Americans made a coup in Pristina. They pushed Abdullah Hoti of the Democratic League of Kosovo to send Albin Kurti and Levizia Vedbendosia, which is movement for self-determination, out of power. And they brought a government headed by the Democratic League of Kosovo. This government, which was illegal, signed the normalization agreement with Serbia and decided to send the embassy of Kosovo in Jerusalem. Now, when we had elections in Kosovo in January 2020, the Albin Kurti, the movement for self-determination, won the elections. And when they won the elections, Benjamin Netanyahu called on Kosovo to send the embassy in Jerusalem. Albin Kurti said, we will see if we send it in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. But what happened? Americans blackmailed the Kurti government. And what happened is that before Albin Kurti was to come to power, there was a kind of coup, a diplomatic coup in Pristina made by Benjamin Netanyahu with the previous government of Abdullah Hoti, and they forced Kosovo to have its embassy in Jerusalem. Now, you as Arnauts, as Albanians of Jerusalem, how did you feel by this action that the government of Kosovo took by sending its embassy in Jerusalem?
It is, it is bad, to have, like, many countries have relations with Israel, and they have their embassies in Tel Aviv. Now, when you decide to open an embassy in Jerusalem, it's a message that you accept the Israeli claim that Israel is the one who rules, is that Jerusalem, entitled Jerusalem, that's all of Jerusalem, East and West, are part of Israel, which is something that we don't like. We say that, okay, West Jerusalem could be the capital of Israel, but East Jerusalem should be the capital of Palestine. And this is the position that is adopted by the almost entire international community, including the European Union. That's, that they say, the European Union, they had a position, and they said they didn't like the fact that that Kosovo decided to open its embassy in Jerusalem. They said, okay, you can open it in Tel Aviv, just like the others, just like France, Italy, Spain, UK, all the countries. The only countries that had an embassy in Jerusalem was the United States, Nicaragua, and Kosovo. That's three countries. While as all the other countries, they have their embassies, in Tel Aviv. Now, why Kosovo decided that the minute that they got this recognition from Israel, which Israel, for a long time decided not to recognize Kosovo because of their relations with Serbia, and also because they hated, the idea of people having like their own independence in their states, because they thought that if they recognize the independence of Kosovo, then this would be a precedent for the Palestinians to ask for their independence from the Israeli occupation. So what Kosovo did is that they decided that they wanted to open, the embassy in Jerusalem, which is bad, and the Palestinians were clearly that they are against this step, that you want to establish relations with the Israelis. Okay, you can do whatever you want. Many countries have relations with Israel, but on the same time, you should avoid having your embassy in Jerusalem, because it harms the Palestinian demands of having a capital in East Jerusalem.
All right. Mr. Arnaut, we recently had the war in Gaza, and the government of Kosovo supported Israel because they are afraid of Americans, of course. And they said Israel has the right to defend itself. You, as an Arnaut, what would you tell to the government of Kosovo and Albania when a conflict happens between Palestine and Israel? Because what we have here, because of the American hegemony, is all this propaganda, especially sponsored even by evangelical Protestant circles. They portray Israel as God's chosen people, and they have the right to do anything against you. So what would be your advice to us in the Balkans? And number two, please, sir, if you can go a bit on the right. Yeah, I want you just there. Yeah, because after that the Skype cuts the image and then I lose you. So what is your appeal to us as Albanians in the Balkans? What should we do for you? as a Palestinian and as an Arnaut, after all.
No, now the word had changed. Now, Donald Trump is no longer in the White House and no longer have authority. You have a change. There is a new American administration. This administration is saying clearly that they are with the two-state solution. They speak about the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity. They say that they want to reopen the American consulate in East Jerusalem, which was closed by Donald Trump. So and they are asking the international community to help both Palestinians and Israelis. Now, the connection between Israel and the United States is something, extraordinary, but it doesn't mean that you have to accept the entire Israeli demands in order to be pro-American. There is in the Congress members who are against the war in Gaza. Bernie Sanders and others are asking to connect the help of Israel to stopping occupation. So I think what is needed from the countries, not just Kosovo, but all the countries, is to be with the Palestinian demand to have a Palestinian state on the borders of 67 and with East Jerusalem as a capital. It's a right, and it is something for those countries to be proud of, that for instance, Kosovo itself, it had its independence, and it should be a country that knows more than others what does it mean, independence for people. So we expect that the Kosovan country, the Kosovo people, is to feel us more than the others, because they fought they wanted their independence, they fought for their independence, and they got their independence. So why not why not helping others who need independence? It is something, you're talking about not something outside the international law. You're talking about something in accordance to the international law, that is the right of the Palestinians to have their own state on 67 borders with East Jerusalem as a capital. You're not supporting something extraordinary, something that is not accepted by the international community. It is the consensus of the international community, and you should be with the consensus of the international community. You should not be, thinking about people, like Trump and others. They are outdated. They are outside. Netanyahu's outside. He's no longer the prime
Mr.
minister.
Arnaut, by the way, Netanyahu is out, and many people around the world are happy. Are you Arnauts happy that Netanyahu lost power?
Look, he lost power, but still the right wing is the majority inside the Knesset. Now there is a change in the Israeli government. Nobody is building a lot of hope on this change, because the prime minister of Israel, the new one, is a right wing. The right wing, they have big power inside the Israeli government. We don't build hopes that this new government would accept what the Palestinians want, which is a state with East Jerusalem as a capital. We know that this government will not accept it, that at the end, but in order to make this possible, to pressure the Israeli government, to accept a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as the capital, you need the support and of the international community of all the countries, in the world, to tell Israel, look, it's over. That in order to bring stability, peace to this area, you need to accept the fact that those Palestinians should have their state, that they should have the 67 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital state. But it won't be realistic to think that this new government would accept. You need big change inside Israel in order to make this possible.
Mr. Arnautet, during my visit in Palestine, I went to Nablus, to Jericho, to Ramallah, etc. I understood that Israel has destroyed the two-state option, two-state solution, how the Americans called it, for the future of Palestine and Israel. They have sent their colonies deep into West Bank. So, you were going to Nablus, but there was no Nablus anymore because Nablus was surrounded by Jewish colonies. You were going to Jericho, there was no Jericho anymore. It was surrounded by Jewish colonies. You were going to El Khalil or Hebron, there was no Hebron because Jewish colonies, they had occupied the heart of the city. Now, what has happened is, at least for us as outside observers, is that the two-state solution is very difficult. Why? Because you have hundreds and thousands of colonists who are in the West Bank, and these people, they're not going to leave. Only if a supreme power, a superpower forces Israel to do that. So for us as people who see the situation from outside, me, myself, I think that the only option that you have in Israel and Palestine is to become Israeli citizens and through vote to change the regime in Tel Aviv, because there is no other option. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria are not going to liberate Israel. We know that. Are not going to liberate Palestine. For as long as the Anglo-American Empire is there, they're going to kill the Arabs, and they will not allow the creation of a Palestinian state. So, at least for us who are outside of Palestine, we see that, and this is something that drives the Americans crazy, is that, okay, Israel destroyed Palestine, they occupied everything, they didn't leave any land for a future Palestinian state. Then what we from outside say, okay, let's have democracy. Because, what is happening now in Israel and Palestine is that there is an apartheid regime. You, as an Arnaut, only because you are a Muslim, you have not the rights that Jewish colonists who are Albanians of Jewish faith, who through the Aliyah system can at any moment come to Israel, get a citizenship, get a house, a job, change their names, become Israelis. People who are not Israelis, people who are Poles, who are Ukrainians, who are Russians, who are Albanians, but only because they follow the Jewish faith. But you who are, we say, Den Babaden, you are since many generations in Palestine, you have no rights. So sometimes I think that probably the best solution for toppling the apartheid and the fascist state of Israel is to have all the Palestinians the right to vote. Sometimes when I debate with Israelis on the internet and they complain, they say, oh, look, these Palestinians, Hamas is throwing us rockets. I tell them, okay, allow them to throw votes in the ballot box. Because, Israel, and especially with what Netanyahu did, by wanting to make Israel a Jewish state, has destroyed totally the historical Palestine. They have taken all their lands. They sent Palestinians in the mountains of Ramallah and of the West Bank or in Gaza. So they're not going to let you go back to your lands. So what do you think about the solution of all you guys becoming Israeli citizens, participating in a democracy, and since you are the majority, because I mean, in my analysis that I make about Israel, I show Israel as a failed state. I mean, this state is being kept by money that U.S. empire is giving to them. They're taking every day $10 million. When I was in Israel, I was shocked. It was a horrible country. I went to Tel Aviv, I went to Ben Gurion, I went to Jerusalem, and people, even when they were in coffees, they were keeping guns in their pockets or in their tables. And you see everywhere soldiers. This is a military garrison. It's not a state. I mean, if they don't receive money from America, they're going to collapse in probably 6 months. But now the question is this. You as Palestinians, you do not have a nuclear weapon. Israel has. You don't have America. Israel has. You don't have rockets. Israel has. But you have the spirit. So my proposal or question to you is, what if you all tell to Israelis, okay, you invaded us, you defeated us, let us vote now and go to the ballot box. Because believe me, this is the nightmare of the Jewish state. Because their problem is that they do not want to accept a multicultural democratic society. What do you think about that?
No, about your question, why we don't take the Israeli citizenship? Why don't they take the Palestinian citizenship? I think there is one of two options: either the two-state solution or the one-state solution.
Yes.
The two-state solution, it's difficult, as you said, but it's still possible. It needs modification of borders, some ideas here and there, but this would solve the issue of the Palestinian state, but don't solve the issue of the refugees, because refugees also had the right. You need to find the right. You need to find the solution for the issue of refugees, and this needs a lot of work that the Israelis are not ready for. The other option is the one-state solution. You said that that Israel had the atomic bomb or atomic weapons, but Palestinians don't have. But in Israel, they say that this is the atomic bomb of the Palestinians. And why they say it? Because if you look now into the area between the sea and the river, which is the historical Palestine, and look at people who are inside this area between the river and the sea. The Palestinians are more than the Jews. So one of the ideas that many Palestinians are saying, and this is originally a Palestinian idea, is that why won't both of us live on the same land, democratic, each one have his own vote. We vote for a parliament that would have the residents of this area that can be called whatever, but Jews and Palestinians. And when I say Palestinians, it's Christians and Muslims in the same parliament, and this parliament would decide its own government, and this parliament would also decide on the president of the state. Now, Israel is not accepting this. Is not accepting this position. It is, many Palestinians, they say, okay, why not? Why not having a Palestinian? Why not having one state in which all of us can live together? if a Jew want to live in Nablus, can live in Nablus. But also, if a Palestinian who is a refugee want to return back to Jaffa or to Haifa or to whatever, can return back and live. Then you have a solution for all the parties. You know, that's all you know, all the Palestinians and the Israelis can live in this piece of land. It's easy, you know, to live in. But this is something that Israel don't agree for. And when, for instance, you hear some Americans, you know, for instance, during the Obama administration, the foreign minister of the United States at that time, John Kerry, had said that if Israel don't accept the two-state solution, then things would slip into one-state solution. And so Israel should hurry up to accept the two-state solution to avoid the two-state solution, the one-state solution,
because a one-state solution means the end of Israel, and Americans know it.
Yeah, yeah. So, but if you know, time is very important. If Israel don't accept a two-state solution now, then now we are half and half. You know, half Palestinian, half Jews, because we can't say Israelis because there is Arab Israelis. Now, how the situation would look like after 5 years, after 10 years, the Palestinians would be more. And each year, it would be more and more. Then the internet, already with this social media, people around the world see what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Jerusalem, things that they used not to see in the media. They see it now. It's easy with the social media networks, and that's why you see more and more people around the world supporting the Palestinians. They say, why those people don't have a state? You know, before that, it was the media who decides what the people should get. Here, now it's free. Everybody, if you are living in the United States, in Brazil, in UK, in France, wherever, it's very easy to Google, Palestine, and the issue of Palestine. You can see, on Facebook and Twitter, on Instagram, on those, videos about what's happening in the Palestinian territories. You don't need. It's no longer you have to wait the news bulletin on TV to see it. You can see it anywhere. So let's say, in if now the support of the Palestinians and the international community between normal people is getting more and more. It's the case in the United States, in Europe, in many places around the world. And those voices would be bigger and bigger with the years. That they would not accept apartheid state. They would say, okay, you have two people on this land. They are ready to live together. We don't accept the idea that one party should rule the other party. They can live together. If they can live together, then why not living together? Let them have a state. And if the United States, Europe is calling for democracy, then democracy means that you go vote with your vote, to decide who will represent you in the parliament. It's not somebody who decides on your behalf who would represent you in the parliament. So then I think that Israel would find itself in a very, very big problem, in the coming years. That is, people would not accept what governments accept. They would say, okay, if we believe in democracy, then there is a need to have a democracy here. That those people, if they want to live together, then they should live together, have one parliament, one government, whatever. But if Israel don't want, then Israel should give them a state. Why not giving them a state? And this is this is the ideas that you see more and more now, in the last, for instance, the issue of Sheikh Jarrah, it's the houses in Sheikh Jarrah is getting support from everywhere in the world. People are saying, what is this? What is this thing that people who were living in their houses since 1956, and you come and say that they should leave their houses? It happens nowhere in the world.
Mr. Abdul Rauf, I'm sorry because I'm taking so much time with you. I have only two last questions. Number one is, we know that Israeli society is not a unified society. Majority of these people who rule today Israel, they are not, according to Jewish authors like Shlomo Sand and others, majority are Ashkenazim. These people are Slavs, Judaized Slavs, people who came from Russia, Ukraine, Poland. Netanyahu is a Polish, Bennett is a Polish, Ariel Sharon was a Belarusian, Shimon Peres was a Polish, and what have you. And we know the process of Judaization. When these people came to Israel, they changed their names, they gave Jewish names. They come and learn Hebrew because they spoke different language. So, I mean, for me as a historian and a political scientist, I mean, the so-called Israelis, they are an invented nation. Now I have this question, because we know that in Israel we have the Ashkenazi, who are the majority, and then we have the Sephardim and the Arab Jews and Iranian Jews, and we have the Falasha Jews of Africa. Is there a rift and a tension within these two groups? Because you have this group of the white, Slavic, Ashkenazi Jews who rule, and then you have these black Jews, African Jews, Arab Jews, who we from outside see that they are not in position of power. Do you think that there is a division between the Ashkenazis and?
No, there is nothing, that you can feel. That it's,
within the Jewish society, they don't question sometimes, and they don't say, why should these Poles and Ukrainians have power?
It's not a phenomenon in Israel. You see some people sometimes, complaining, saying those are like this and like this, but at the end, the difference is you see it between the different parties. That is, do you have right, center, few left? The right is, those people who don't accept any kind of a Palestinian state, and they say that all the land is Israel. The center is people who say, okay, Palestinians have the right to have like a self-rule, maybe a state minus state, not complete state. And the left, they are few in the Israeli society. They say that Palestinians have the right of state, but you don't see the differences that of people from different origins, who are from Europe, who are from the East, who are from Ethiopia, or these things. Sometimes you see problems that the Ethiopians, they say, for instance, that they have a problem of discrimination or no rights, but it's not something that they keep talking about it. That it comes, goes down, then now there is a representative for them in the Israeli government, and it was in the previous government. So they're no longer talking about this issue. So it's not something that sometimes people talk about it as if that there is inside problems inside Israel that would be like have an impact on Israel because of this issue. I at least personally, I don't see it happening. Now. It's not, it's more differences about sometimes there is the problem of the Haredim that that they don't want to serve in the army. Some people are saying they should serve in the army. They try to find a solution for it, but it's it's it maybe if there is a solution with the Palestinians, you might see such thing, that Israel would be in its own state, then maybe there would be discussions between the Israelis themselves about the kind of state that they are in after giving the Palestinians their own state. But for the time being, you see, as I told you, see sometimes problems of Ethiopians, you see sometimes problems of Haredim who don't want to serve in the army, but nothing serious.
All right. Mr. Arnaut, I'd like to thank you very, very much for coming in my show. We had horrible technical problems, but I think it was not Mossad, but your computer who was causing the problems.
Yeah.
What would be your final say to the Albanians who are watching us throughout the world? I'm gonna have you again in my shows, inshallah, and I hope that you can even introduce us to more Arnauts, because I mean you are a discovery for us. I mean our embassies, they are afraid of the Israeli government. They go and kiss their hands. They do whatever Americans tell them. But we, as people to people, we should stay connected, because after all, we're Albanians. I mean, we are Arnauts. We share the same history and culture. So what would be your final message to our viewers in the Balkans and
That you have brothers here in Palestine, and especially in Jerusalem. A lot of the family is living in the old city near Al-Aqsa Mosque. We still have the name of big people. We're still proud of it, and we feel neglected for a long time. Nobody's thinking about us. Nobody's thinking about connecting with us. And maybe it's time to correct this mistake. That to feel like other people from other origins whom the governments of the places that they belong to ask about them, think about them. It's a good thing. It would be, when you see, for instance, in Jerusalem that there is countries that still have like Morocco, for instance. They have some places in East Jerusalem. It says that's connected to Morocco, Turkey, other countries, France, Italy, Spain. All these countries, they have places. But here, for Albania, you have people, which is more important than a place. But we hope that that it's I personally believe it was a mistake not to connect with us, and I hope that this mistake would be solved.
Inshallah, we will connect as people to people. And by the way, we have many Albanians who are following the order of our Sheikh Omar al-Kiswani, who told me, come and do your Hajj here,
Yeah.
who are coming and they're doing Hajj in Quds al-Sharif. So, inshallah,
When you
Sorry?
come, you have brothers here, you know.
That is why. That is the point. Please, you have to tell me where to find you. And inshallah, I'm going to tell to all my Albanian friends in Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia. So when they come to do Hajj in Quds al-Sharif, you should show us a konak, a kafehane, a chayhane, or I don't know what term you use. I'm using our Balkanic Ottoman terms. You should have probably you might have any caravanserai, or like the Ottomans had, or maybe any fundak, any hotel that some Arnauts can have, and we should advertise it to our brothers. So whenever they come to do Hajj in Quds al-Sharif, they should come in your places and to build up our Arnaut Mahalla, or the Albanian district in Jerusalem, and of course to have our flag there and to show to the world that Arnauts are here. And we as Arnauts, we have a very famous history and connection with Palestine, apart from Sheikh Ahmed Helmi Abdul Baqi that you mentioned, who was the prime minister in time of the Ottoman Empire. We were the defenders of Palestine. There is a book called Turkish Palestine by my friend Mehmet Tutuncu, and there he shows even the Albanians who were there in time of the Ottoman Empire. For example, he have even put in his book a flag of the division of Shkodra, Shkodra division, who was sent, I think, in time of Sultan Abdul Hamid, and was defending Masjid al-Halil, the Ibrahim Mosque in al-Halil, in Hebron. So we were there. And by the way, the last Ottoman prefect of Quds was Mehdi Frashri, who was also an Albanian. So we have so many connections. And I mean, while Israel is trying to manipulate in the Balkans and trying to manipulate the Albanians and shows you Arabs like you are latecomers, or this war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu says that God gave us Palestine. It was not God, it was Britain and America. We should show our own option of history. So I will appeal to my Albanian friends once we close the video, and I'll tell them, so when you go to Palestine, we have the Arnauts here, so they must come and do ziyarat. They must visit you and even make dua, pray to you. And by the way, when I visited Quds al-Sharif, Sheikh Omar al-Kiswani told me this is the gate to the heaven. So, I mean, because our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Isa alayhi salam, they went to the sky from there. So it is a very important place for us. Mr. Arnaut, I was very happy to have you in my show. Please forgive me and for the technical problems we had, but we'll have you again, inshallah. Thank you very much indeed, and assalamu alaikum. Dear friend, dashur miq, këtu po e mbyll videon me zotin Arnaut. Për ju që nuk kuptoni anglisht, gjeni dikë që t'ua përkthej, po zoti Abdul Rauf Arnauti na tregoi për realitetet e shqiptarëve në Palestinë, se si ambasada e Kosovës dhe e Tiranës nuk e çan fare kohën për shqiptarët e Palestinës, por ata janë me qindra aty. Me zotin Abdul Rauf folëm edhe për punën e Haxhit, dhe gjithë ju që do shkoni në Jeruzalem, në Quds al-Sharif për të bërë Haxhin herë tjetër, duhet më kontaktoni mua dhe unë do t'ju vëj në lidhje me zotin Abdul Rauf Arnautin, dhe në Jeruzalemin lindor kur të shkoni, do takoni Arnautët, shqiptarët tanë që i kemi den babaden në Palestinën e pushtuar nga Izraeli. Dhe për ata servil të Izraelit që thonë që Palestina dhe Jeruzalemi i përket Izraelit, duhet ta dinë që kanë vëllezërit e tyre shqiptar që akoma rezistojnë dhe thonë që Jeruzalemi lindor është për ne, për Palestinën. Në bisedën që pata me zotin Abdul Rauf Arnaut, ai na tha disa fakte shumë interesante, fakte që nga kryeministri I parë I Palestinës që ka qenë në kohën kur Izraeli e pushtoi në 48-ën dhe u bë shtet, ka qenë një shqiptar, pra mbajini mend dhe thuajeni atyre palikarëve që u lërasin për Izraelin në Tiranë dhe në Prishtinë, që kur izraelitët erdhën nuk gjetën arab aty kryeministër, po gjetën një shqiptar, I cili ishte Ahmed Helmi Abdulbaki, që një nga hoxhallarët e xhamisë Aksa ka qenë gjithashtu shqiptar, emrin e kishte Mahmud el Arnauti, dhe që në vakëfin e xhamisë së shenjtë kemi të varrosur Ahmed Hilmi Abdulbakin, që është një shqiptar, Haj Emin Al Huseinin dhe Sherif Huseinin. Pra duhet ta dini që kur të shkoni në Quds, aty janë varret e shqiptarëve tanë që kanë luftuar për mbrojtjen e xhamisë së shenjtë. Ju falenderoj shumë gjithëve. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Salam.
Salam sir.
Welcome.